There's something that happens when a black woman achieves success and especially power. Some people feel the need to humiliate her. We've seen it in our own lives with our mothers, wives, sisters, friends, leaders who have achieved success. They have to overcome this on the way. Trump clowns say that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, even though she was the Attorney General of California, the largest population state in the U.S., elected to the United States Senate, served on Senate committees, elected Vice President of the United States, and cast tie-breaking votes as President of the Senate. They say she's inexperienced, she's not black,
There is one good thing that's come out of this lunacy policy that CNN suddenly discovered to be Fox, S-H-I-T-E. It's freed up, I suppose, more Democrats to actually appear on the original Fox, as in Fox Entertainment. And, wow. Dana Perino, who's made like that. She found out pretty quickly.
Michael, I wanted to love the speech, and I didn't. It just felt like it rang hollow because you're left wondering, wait, for 9 months you said you were the perfect guy to run the thing. Then there was questions about your health, but you didn't address those. And you also said that you wanted to pass the torch, but then why not pass the torch before? So can you understand, Michael, why there are a lot of people going, we don't really get it this morning?
Well, no, look, the guy gets to have his last 10 minutes where he gets to frame why he stepped out of the race. I mean, it's happened twice in the 60s where a sitting president took themselves out of the nomination process, and it hasn't happened since. I think Biden gets credit for coming to the realization that the things that he cares about would not be passed along if he continued in the race. He was able to make an honest handicap of his political situation. No one needs to know that he's old. We already know that he's already 81. Everybody in America can tell you his age. So he's allowed to have his moment where I think he had a very successful term. And if he was 61-year-old Joe Biden, he would easily win re-election. The biggest problem that even Democrats had was, does he have the fitness for 4 more of these years? And the answer is 90% of Americans are glad that he stepped down, and 70% of Americans think that he ought to stay as president for the rest of the term. So I'm at peace with what Joe Biden had to say last night.
Let's set aside the age thing then for a second, because President Trump was handily in the polls, running away with it against Biden on the policies, because he's older too. Doesn't read as old as Joe Biden does, but he is on the age issue. But the American people are saying is that they're worried about affordability, on the economy, inflation, border, and crime. So those are policy issues. Harris has those same issues, right?
Oh, I'm sure she does, but now I think she gets to have the bullhorn in her own hand, and you can hear it in her own voice. Look, 30% of Americans wanted neither man to run, regardless of party. Mostly independents wanted neither man to run. So nobody wanted any of these choices. And so Joe Biden stepped up and said, fine, I'll take myself out of the game, and now you're going to have another choice. And so maybe this race does come down to policy issues and not who's old enough. I mean, Donald Trump did not look so great this morning on your airways. The support of Project 2025, he's not for abortion, or he's for an abortion ban. He's not for mail-in voting. Like, clearly now, the Republicans held Joe Biden to a standard of being old. Well, Donald Trump looks pretty old today.
I want to just play a little bit of...
The reason that CNN should be castigated for what they're doing is it's not about news. It's literally, they're not concentrating on policy. They wouldn't sit down and start asking Trump like serious questions about education policy, for example. No, it's all tittle-tattle. Gossip, what gets clicks. Like, they're spending no time analysing. Trump's made a comment today that he can solve what's going on in the Middle East just like that. Nothing at CNN. Instead, they want to start just deep diving into what muck they can spread around with regard VP Harris's, who's going to be President Harris, I think, in January. Kamala Harris, they want to see what muck they can find with regard to her VP choice, which is, I'm not saying they don't need to cover the story, but there is no balance. No balance at all. It's all innuendo, gossip, just tittle-tattle based around the Democrats. Like nothing on Trump. Nothing.
Do you see any of these potential running mates as being the strongest pick for the Democrats?
Well, I think Shapiro would be the right choice, especially today. And I hope whoever she picks shows more leadership as a vice presidential candidate than she showed as the actual vice president today, leaving Washington, abdicating her responsibility to preside over the Senate, while we have terrorist sympathizers running wild in Washington, burning the American flag, hoisting the flag of terrorist organizations that are currently holding Americans hostage. I tell you, she could show me something and show the American people some leadership here by picking Shapiro. I already know there are Democrats that don't want her to pick Shapiro because he's Jewish. Let's be honest about it. But he would put Pennsylvania back in play. He would put Pennsylvania back in play, and it would be a signal. It would be a signal to the progressive left in this country that our political parties are not going to put up with this garbage that we saw on the streets of Washington, D.C. today.
David Shelley.
That's not true, though.
Let me let Bakari go ahead, Bakari.
I just have to, I have to call it where it is. That's simply not true. And if anybody looks at Kamala Harris's record, particularly when she was a United States Senator and Vice President, and by the way, this is the first time in American history we've had a full-throated, truly Zionist president in Joe Biden, and she was there.
Where was she today, Bakari? Where was she? Where was she today?
So I just, and she's going to meet with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, and that's not a question. And her loyalty to Israel is not a question. And so the red meat just has to completely stop. What you're saying is not accurate. There is no space.
She was not there. It is accurate.
But what I would prefer is if Israel did not become this partisan issue. Israel is an American value, and I wish that we got back to the place where Israel was a nonpartisan issue. That's the same thing I'm telling Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris knows that as well. And by the way, Scott, every single day she sleeps beside a man who is actually Jewish. And so do not question her loyalty to the state of Israel. That is beyond the pale, and what you're saying is not accurate. And I just have to clarify that.
She was not there today, Bakari. She was at a sorority thing. She was not doing her job today while this happened in Washington. You and I both know it.
It's not a sorority thing. It's not a sorority thing. Those are black women, and this was on the schedule.
All right,
but
guys.
what I would also say, Scott, is I would
hold on
appreciate
for a
the same
moment.
energy.
The former president is speaking right now. I want to listen in.
Only do common ground so long. And then, Mr. Chairman, and what about, can we call an end to the impeachment effort of President Biden? Has that come officially to an end?
Well, I think what the Oversight Committee did what we were supposed to do. We followed the money. We found tens of millions of dollars. We found lots of LLCs that we never could determine what the purpose of those LLCs were. We found where the money transferred from our adversaries around the world into different LLC bank accounts. We had the Bidens in for a deposition and a transcribed interview. They couldn't definitively say what they did for the money, and I think the American people have the truth now. We did what we were supposed to do. My job wasn't to impeach. My job was to investigate, and I investigated, and we've turned over our findings to Speaker Johnson's office. He can determine what to do with that. But I believe the American people know a lot more about what the Bidens have done because of our work.
I'll just say, well, I think Chairman Comer did a magnificent job exonerating Joe Biden of all the fraudulent charges that were raised against him in this Congress. And of course, there was no high crime, no misdemeanor. And Joe Biden is a passionate public servant filled with integrity and honesty.
Nobody's buying what he's selling on that.
America's buying it. The reservoir of love for Joe Biden is deep and really bottomless in America.
You do disagree on a lot of things, as we can point out, but you do agree on some things that you work together on. And